One of the go-tos with this channel during the summer is the historical videos. Now, I know there are people who already are like, man, what's he doing? These are also videos that work for new fans to the game. These are videos that some people enjoy hearing about the stuff that happened way back when. And we're in the 81-82 season because I did 79-80. I did 80-81. So very quickly we start moving into more familiar territory. This was the first year I really got into hockey. And this was the year that the New York Islanders won 3 in a row. The first American team to ever do that. 3 straight Stanley Cups. Billy Smith was 15-3 in the playoffs. Pretty dominant. And he was very well rested come playoff time because they had a pretty good tandem in New York. The Vancouver Canucks, unlikely finalists. They broke an 0-5 slump in first rounds. And then they wouldn't get out of the first round again until the early 90s. And this ended up increasing pressure on the Canucks to a level they were never going to achieve. They were never going back to the Stanley Cup Finals with that roster. In Winnipeg, Dale Hawerchuk was immediately seen as the next best thing to 99, Wayne Gretzky. His rookie year, he gets 103 points. He wins the Calder. And the Winnipeg Jets rose from the depths to become a playoff team. And then they were moving to the Smythe Division as part of realignment, which, of course, was with Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary. And they were seen as a really good up-and-coming team. So things are much brighter in Winnipeg after a really bad down season the year before. Philadelphia, the Cooperalls. For people who don't know what the Cooperalls are, it's they didn't wear shorts. They wore pants. Long pants. The problem with the Cooperalls was, while players will tell you they made them faster, they were better than wearing shorts on the ice. If you fell down, it was hard to stop, and it was hard to get back up. So that's why the NHL, after 2 seasons of Cooperalls, would say, these aren't safe, and we're going to ditch them. So that's what ended up happening. The LA Kings, at 63 points, really poor regular season, but they upset the Edmonton Oilers, and they viewed themselves as a contender because they upset the Edmonton Oilers in the first round of the playoffs, which we'll come back to. We'll discuss that first round, but the fact the Kings viewed themselves as contenders going into the next season proves to be folly. The Calgary Flames were swept in round 1 by the Vancouver Canucks, and there's a lot of talk about them potentially being in decline. Yeah. So Kings, maybe contenders. Jets look like a force. Flames, might be on their way down. The idea that we have problems prognosticating the game now, and it was easier back then, it really wasn't. There was no telling. Speaking of difficult to predict, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Michel Dion was brought in as a replacement for Greg Millen. Greg Millen dragged them to the playoffs the year before. Dion did the same that year. In fact, they pushed the Islanders to the brink of elimination. They pushed the Islanders harder than everybody else in the playoffs that year, but then fell off the map after that, which shows that just because you're the toughest challenge to the Stanley Cup champions doesn't necessarily mean you go on to a lot of success the year after. There is a madness video that I will do at some point this summer regarding that. I'm not going to say fact, but it's close to it. The idea that if you push them, it doesn't necessarily mean the following season you're going to be really good. Capitals continue to struggle. Don't make the playoffs. Mike Palmateer is 2-7-2 that season and deals with injury problems. So Palmateer the year before had been inconsistent, and this season not only inconsistent with bad numbers but injured. Dave Paro had to come in and be the starter. Goes 16-27-7, and I remember as a kid kind of cheering for Dave Paro. I really did. I wanted this guy to be the answer, because when Palmateer got hurt, I kind of was drawn to the Capitals as a little kid. And Al Jensen, the number 3 in this bunch, 8-4. After this season was over, they bring in Pat Riggin. Pat Riggin had been the goaltender for the Flames. And there you go. So the Washington Capitals will be ending that issue they have with making the playoffs, but not with those goaltenders. Unfortunately, Paro is a flash in the pan and doesn't last very long. The North Stars, are seen as future champs. All three annuals that from the 80, 81, 82 seasons state that the North Stars are contenders, and of the Norris Division teams, they're the most likely to be a Stanley Cup champ. And there's a lot to be said for them becoming future champs at this point. They went to the final in 81. They won their division in 82. They got upset in the first round. But this whole offseason, there's a lot of upsets. A lot of upsets to be handed out. And that's part of the reason why Vancouver ends up in the finals, because they swept Calgary in the first round. They played LA in the second round because they knocked out the Oilers, and then they played Chicago in the third round, who didn't have to worry about the North Stars or the Blues. Those are the two teams that Vancouver would not have liked playing. And then in the finals, the Islanders clapped them out in 4 straight. The Colorado Rockies, these guys right here, they play their last year before they move to New Jersey and into the Patrick Division. The Patrick Division is tough as hell, and there's a lot of talk about how, hey, it just went from bad to worse, because the Rockies moved from the Smythe Division, which is made up of some pretty bad teams, and the Oilers, to a division where almost everybody's pretty darn good, and they're going to miss the playoffs for the next decade. That was basically the opinion at the time. They were the Mickey Mouse run organization. The Rockies were 4-28-8 on the road that year. 4 wins on the road, and when they were at home, the average attendance in Denver was 8,179. That's miserable. So going out of Colorado anywhere at that point looks like a good idea. Toronto, in surprising news, Bob Mano posted 55 points in the 81-82 season, and then he leaves for Italy. See ya. Isn't that weird? That's of all of the news from that year, the Bob Mano going to Italy thing to me is the weirdest, because 50 points as a defenseman, and then I'm just gonna go play in Italy. I cannot see anybody doing that now. Boston. So Harry Sinden, general manager for the Boston Bruins, drafts Gord Kluzak at number 1, which surprises a lot of people. He kept that close to the vest. He was really, really hinting that Brian Bellows was going to be the pick. He said Brian Bellows, great player, needs to be on a good team, which kind of meant needs to be playing for us. But he ends up drafting Kluzak in 82 because he knows Brad Park's nearing the end of his career, and he thinks Gord Kluzak is a good replacement for Brad Park. And Kluzak has all the skill, he has the skating, and he has some physical to his game as well. Now, we remember Kluzak for his career ending, early and for his injury problems. But as far as Sinden goes, he's happy. Now, a couple videos ago, I talked about how the Bruins were an older team and they're falling off. Not anymore. So while Pete Peters hasn't quite had that amazing season he's going to have, they get a 92-point rookie season for Peterson. And with Peterson and Casper down the middle, Boston all of a sudden is young and talented right in the most important part of their lineup, center position. And their defense, they're starting to get some younger defensemen in there as well. And there's a lot of hope for the future with Boston. Detroit, really miserable year for Detroit. This team is an absolute joke at this point. So, from the New York Islanders organization, they hire, Mike Ilitch hires Jimmy Devellano as the new general manager. And Jimmy Devellano will set the groundwork for Detroit finally being a good team. And it is the start of some pretty big names leaving the New York Islanders. It is the start of that. Eventually this happens where your team is the best in the league and everybody knows it. Well, the guys who are a part of that team are going to be popular with other teams that are looking to hire a general manager or a coach or a head scout. These guys are going to be important because they're seen as the smartest in the game. The Nordiques, at this point in time, are heralded as future champions as well. And it's not hurt that they're seen as future champions, that they had a nice long playoff run. They knocked out Montreal in the first round in 5. They knocked out Boston in the second round in 7. So those are 2 storied franchises right there. And then the Islanders beat the hell out of them in 4. It's what the Islanders do. The Islanders, this was their 3rd cup. We don't have time to waste here. We're tired. We got to win this fast. And so the Nordiques get run over, but they're seen as future champions. They won the Battle of Quebec. They knocked out the Montreal Canadiens. What more do you want? Montreal is in peril. A lot of talk about the team being cheap and contract problems. Guy Lafleur gets his renegotiated, so he agrees to stay, but some guys put their houses up for sale. So as a way of saying, hey, Montreal, we're serious, we might leave, they actually put their houses in Montreal up for sale, including Mark Napier, 40-goal scorer, Rod Langway, who we know is going to end up leaving, Doug Wickenheiser, Larry Robinson, Guy Lafleur, and Mario Tremblay are all listed as players who are unhappy with their contracts in Montreal. Just imagine that now. Just imagine any team now having 6 guys on the record saying, we don't like the deals we've got. Well, first off, with the way the guys get paid now, they would get tarred and feathered on social media and labeled as completely, totally selfish players. They're easily replaced. They can go. And a lot of these guys are going to get traded out. Doug Wickenheiser didn't last much longer. Langway goes to the Capitals. Napier ended up in Edmonton. I know he played Buffalo as well. Robinson would play for quite a while before he ends up in LA. Lafleur, of course, would retire a couple years later, and Tremblay. So this gets kind of glossed over a little bit, but there's something to be said for about a team where 6 guys are like, we're getting cheaped out on. And last but not least, Edmonton. Their choke versus the Kings in round 1 is epic. They lose game 1 at home 10-8. So we'll just ignore the miracle on Manchester, because everybody talks about the miracle on Manchester, where it's Edmonton's up 5-0 after 2, and then LA comes back and beats them 6-5. No. You lose 10-8 at home. 10. They win 3-2 in game 2. They go to LA. They lose that miracle in Manchester 6-5. They win game 4 3-2 to go home. They're home. They had more points than everybody else in the league who wasn't the Islanders. They were against a team that had 63 points in the regular season in the Kings. And they lost game 5 7-4. So this is where the Kings get the idea of, hey, we had 63 points. We were miserable during the regular season. We're not bad, though. We're in pretty good shape. No, they're not. But the Oilers lose games 1-5 at home. And the important thing is that the way that Oilers management spins this, the way that Glenn Sather spins this, is to say, hey, we moved up in the standings. We were higher up than we expected to be. We're ahead of the curve. So even though they get destroyed in the first round and humiliated, he's still saying, hey, we're still ahead of where we thought we'd be. There's no panic here. And the players would reward him for that from then on. Gretzky himself, he gets 212 points and he gets 92 goals. That 92 goals is still a record. 212, he would best that with 215 after. But 92 goals, still pretty important. And for people who say, well, yeah, but by today's standard, no. He wins the Art Ross by 65 points. I don't care what era it is. Gretzky wins the Art Ross by 65 points. That is insane. That's almost a point a game. That's crazy. So he has 120 assists that season. It is crazy totals that Gretzky puts up. There's an article in the Annual I was using for all these notes, and Gretzky's asked about, how do you do this? How does this work? And he goes, I don't know. It's just how I play. Talks about how his dad pushed him to play hockey all the time. Got 5 minutes, go out in the backyard, play some hockey. Like, it was just, that was the focus, and Walter Gretzky raised a kid who ended up tearing up the record books. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.